All right. Hey, it's good to see you. This is our day after podcast. My name is Philip Thomas, pastor of Journey here in Elgin, Texas. This is Tom Burns with Redeemed Idiot going through his ministry that goes through the book of Revelation. We meet on Wednesday nights at 6:30. Love for you to come to that, or you can watch it on through our app, the Journey Elgin Church app, or on the Redeemed Idiot sites as well, on YouTube and Facebook, right? So just be honest here. We've already had this conversation. It was really good. And,
so it's not a time travel thing.
Yeah. So, but there's one key element when you're trying to do like a little podcast is you have to hit the record button. I mean, it's really unreasonable. You would think our technology would just know, start recording, but no, it doesn't. You actually have to hit the button. And the really ironic thing is I feel a lot of guilt about this now.
Oh, man.
I'm going to have to. But I actually talked right before we started the first conversation. Talked about one of my big fears is that, we have a whole conversation and it didn't get recorded.
Right.
And I swear to you that just happened. So I don't know what I'm supposed to learn from this. But here we go again.
Focus on the negative.
That's right. Don't focus on the negative. So the purpose of this podcast, the day after, is always to just kind of look at the sermon, unpack it a little bit. We made it through Easter, right? Yep. So there's always a little bit of an Easter hangover, right? From a pastor perspective, but I think also from a congregation perspective, right? We have all this build up to Easter, and then, another Sunday is here, right? So I always kind of wonder, well, where do you go from there? And so I decided to talk about two of my favorite encounters post resurrection with Thomas and with Peter. Dealing both with denial or betrayal, or really more denial and guilt and doubt.
Right.
So what were some of your thoughts? We can start with Thomas, or what was your
starting
idea?
with Thomas. I like how you brought what's not said into it. A lot of times when the church teaches on this, and not saying it's a big deal, but you get the feeling of the idea that he actually did poke fingers into the hands, into his sides, or even looked at them. But it's interesting when you were reading it, you brought it up to actually what it says. It does not say that he did either one of those. That like pretty much when he's seen the Christ, he knew. Yeah. That's it. So I thought that was really important because one, the focus on Christ part. So it's like once you see him, once you know him, you know. And then the other part was the doubt that he had that we all experience constantly, even though he's hearing it from the disciples and all the other people that seen Christ, he's still like, nah, I don't believe what you say. But he still doubted, and Christ did not have a problem with that. He understood.
Yeah, he actually never called him out for his doubt at all. And I do think there's something important about that. And in fact, he the only even close to negative, and it's not a negative, is he tells Thomas, he says, you've believed because you have seen. Mm-hmm. Which was just a statement of fact, right? But then he says, blessed are those who have believed who have not seen.
Right.
But the reality is it doesn't matter which camp you're in, which the substantial camp is the one who believes that has not seen, right? He's not condemning or chastising the natural human doubt or uncertainty that we had. Right. So you're right, Thomas. I love because Jesus, he knows what our doubt is. He knows that he knows what it's like to be human. He knows the doubts, right? And so I love how the whole interaction took place, because Thomas, when he having these conversations with the disciples, he said, "I need to put my fingers in his hands and in his side." Right? Thomas is kind of going above and beyond, saying, no, I need physical evidence. I need to see all of this. Well, Jesus knows that. right? We talk about our phones listening to us all the time, which they are. And maybe they recorded our previous conversation. I should have just asked them.
China.
Yeah, Xi Jinping. Hey, can you send me the last 30 minutes of conversation? But Jesus knew what the doubt that Thomas had. And so what does Jesus do? He offers immediately for him to do what he said that he needed to do. And I love that, because Jesus is meeting that doubt right where Thomas set the expectation.
Right.
And then Thomas, upon seeing the Lord, of being introduced to the risen Christ, just falls at his on the ground and says, "My Lord and my God."
Right.
Right. He doesn't. There's no indication that he actually even touches the nail marks. Now, maybe he did. We don't know for sure. But I think that's an instructive aspect of how Christ deals with our doubt. If we are honest about it and we actually bring it to him, I think that's a lot of times where the problem is and the church, and tell me if you agree with this, is I think sometimes in the way that we talk about doubt, we connect it with faith. Mm-hmm. And so we say things like, well, if you have enough faith, you won't doubt. Or that you may have had the experience of going and asking someone a question, that you have about your faith. And there's some questions that are hard to answer, right? And because whoever you're asking, they may have never really thought about that. The easy response is, well, just have faith and then you won't doubt. You won't have those types of questions. That's not accurate at all.
No. And I think even in your sermon, you brought that of like, okay, how do you increase your faith? I don't remember what you said, go shopping for it, Amazon, whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not how it comes about. And everybody has different levels of faith. Faith is obviously a personal thing, obviously. But to your point, it's not like you just find faith. You just can't go, oh, okay.
Yeah.
There it is. I got more faith now. Oh, now I see it.
And now all those questions are gone.
Yeah, 100%. Exactly. And what's funny is when you're talking about Thomas, because my name is Thomas, yes. I don't know I would have been any different. Because I have a real hard time just believing what anybody tells me. Mm-hmm. Not saying I don't believe people, but I'm one of those people, and maybe because of when I'm being military, been to church so long, there's just things that said that I've learned like, well, that doesn't make sense. Mm-hmm. No, that's not right. So I tend to have this doubting, critical thinking type thing going on. I don't know if I'd have been so much different, Thomas. Like, okay, I hear you, Peter. I hear you, Paul. I hear everybody. Yeah, you're saying that this is the Christ. I need to see him. Yeah. Prove it to me. Mm-hmm. Because I'm having a problem with this because he did die. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if I'd have been much different, just to be honest. No. I might, as you put it, I might have been the guy going out and getting pizza. Now, a Mediterranean pizza, I sure the heck would have been that guy. I love Mediterranean food. But I don't know if I'd been any different. No. I really don't.
And that's a good point. All of us, at some point in our life, have some doubts and have questions. And I think this interaction with Thomas is Jesus saying, listen, I don't condemn you for your doubt, for asking questions. In fact, I don't hold that against you at all. In a sense, he's inviting us to have the questions, right? Like he knew what Thomas's questions were. And so he presented the answers to him right there. Right. Right. Now the danger here and why sometimes we connect, we don't want to talk about doubt and we want to encourage people just don't doubt, is because doubt is definitely used by Satan to pull us away from Christ. So the question, you have a part to play whenever you're having doubts. Mm-hmm. Where are you going to go seek the answers?
Exactly.
Right. And are you going to at least give Christ the chance to answer?
That's a good way to put it.
Right. Thomas could have, said, you know what? All this sounds crazy. I saw him die. Y'all are crazy. Whether I wanted it to be true or not, I don't care anymore because none of this is making sense. I'm going back and getting my fishing business started again.
Right.
Right. He could have done that and he would have never had the chance, or may never have had the chance, to see the risen Christ again.
Right.
Right. But he put himself in the position to where God had a chance to answer those doubts.
Right. Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
But Satan will use it to try to pull us away. And in this world today, we're surrounded by so much knowledge, not necessarily truth, right? But we have access to so much. I do think there's a danger that the people who grew up in the church, right, and just assumed my faith is my faith, and then all of a sudden they enter into the real world, and people have legitimate questions.
Absolutely.
Right. It's easy for us to go, you know what? I've never thought about that, and maybe there's truth in all of these other ways of thinking, the Buddhist way of thinking, or the atheistic way of thinking. Right? They make some good points, and rather than actually trying to find those answers in your own faith, we spend more time. Well, those are good questions, and I don't see the answer, so maybe I'll just go that direction. That's really dangerous to do, and a great tool that Satan uses.
It very much is, and I think that the advent of social media, there's so many of those out there that are trying to push the narrative against God, against Christ, and they make a lot of really good points.
Yeah.
You say this, your church, your belief says this, but I can go in your Bible and go, it says this right here.
Yeah.
Why? And I think so many times we will see that, and the church will say, or people within the church, because this gets said a lot, God's will, God's way. They just go, I can't answer, but there's got to be a reason why this looks like it contradicts itself.
Yeah.
I don't know. And I get it, but for some people, that's their answer.
Yeah.
Okay. But there's other people who go, that's true.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't make sense. And then you give enough of that information that shows enough things to deny who Christ is, or the Bible, you're going to go, why do I even believe this? Yeah, you're right. I'm done with this. I'm going this direction. And that happens. I'm actually seeing that on the social media. I used to be evangelical. I used to be Christian. I used to believe, but because of X, Y, and Z, I do not. I live this way. This is, and it's those lies. It's that it's just being impugned upon us. And as opposed to, like you're saying, go find out why. Why does it say that or not say that?
Yeah.
And the answer's there. And it's just like
it is.
Thomas looking, I need to see the Jesus.
Yeah.
He was the answer. And just on one last thing on that, because you said it doesn't say that he touched him or anything. He just seen him and he bowed down. That is actually not the first time that's happened. If we look at John in the book of Revelation, as soon as he sees him, his best friend, he's face in the floor as though dead.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that tells us that you just know. You're going to get, that's the Christ. I don't need to see the nails. I don't need to see the mark. And that's the beauty of it. His glory is like, and I got to bring, I'm going to say this, but when you go all the way through the work of Revelation and you get to the very end, you have this great white throne judgment. What you'll not read is that those that enter into that great white throne judgment are cast. No one argues.
Yeah. Yes. That's right.
They'll be like,
oh,
I deserve this. And that's really what's happening.
Yeah.
No one's like, hold on, God. No. You're wrong. You forgot that. No. Yeah. That glory of who he is, you're going to know. Thomas knew. Yeah. This is the Christ.
Yeah.
Okay, you got me now.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's good. So bringing in the big picture, we need to understand that. One of the things that we open ourselves up to as Christians, I think, is sometimes we're always looking for a verse, right? We're like, so if you ask me a question, it's like, well, let me find a verse for that. Okay. I'm horrible at memorizing verses. I memorize a lot of themes, and there's certain verses, and you can definitely find them. You just have to Google it. Don't trust Google. It may send you somewhere else. Verify that it's actually in the Bible.
Right.
But if you want to find scriptures on anger, you can find a bunch of scriptures. I think sometimes we rely on that too much, that there's going to be a single scripture that has the answer. Well, the reality is the single scripture will actually open open up the opportunity for doubt. For example, there's scriptures that talk about that if you have faith, you will be made well. right?
Mhm.
And then we know that Christ did heal people, literally, right? That he took away the blind will see, the
Right.
deaf will hear, the lame will walk, right? So both of those things are true. Your faith will make you well. And then we see that Jesus physically healed people. If that becomes kind of a focus in a church and you don't explain the big picture, you just kind of rely on that. And say you grow up in that atmosphere, and then all of a sudden you go out into the real world and someone asks you, well, I thought you said that your faith made you well. And you say, well, of course I believe that. And then, well, why were you sick last week? Why did you have pneumonia? Why did your loved one die of cancer?
Why did you get old and die?
Yeah, I thought faith made you well,
Right.
right? Well, the big picture of Scripture does not say that.
No.
It teach right, but look how that can be used to sow seeds of doubt.
Mhm.
So we need to make sure that we are seeing the fullness of the glory of God, and when that happens, there's no doubt. It, and also understand sometimes you have to do your part in this. You
Right.
have to open yourself up to the truth. Rarely do we have the experience like Paul, where
Right.
Paul was not seeking the truth, right? He thought he knew the truth, and that was to get rid of this new sect of Messianic Jews, right?
Right.
You know?
Yep.
And but what did God do? He did something that was unique, that is not the norm, right? He intervened, and Paul recognized, oh, I've been on the wrong path. Now I'm going on the right path. For most people, that's not how it's going to happen, right?
Right.
We actually have to seek what is true. And it's more than just one Bible verse. We have to understand the fullness of the glory of God.
Right. Exactly.
So, but the important thing is don't let your doubt keep you from seeking God, keep
Right.
you from following Him. Right? Be like Thomas. Acknowledge what your doubts are, and bring those before the feet of Christ,
That's a good way to
and
put it,
allow
yeah.
Him to answer them.
Yeah. Exactly.
Right? And this doesn't mean that you can't seek what other people say, what doubters say. We should know that, right?
No. That's what led me a lot in the way I did, especially when I went down this revelation thing. Is what I found is like there was those things. I'm not one that just typically like follow somebody. It's like, okay, that does kind of make sense.
Mm-hmm.
And I would go find out, why does this say this and this say that? There's got to be a reason. Or is my faith just based on this book, which is a bunch of garbage, and I believed a lie this whole time?
Yeah.
Or is there something more to it, not just God just kind of made it that way? Yeah. And once you do that dive, you start going, oh, well, okay, this is just taken out of context.
Yeah.
Or this is.
Yeah.
When you put it, okay, now I get it. It's like, it makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
No, it does. So that was doubt. But I wanted to go ahead and bring in Peter too.
Absolutely.
And it brings in, I think, more the issue of guilt, right?
I would say so.
I think so. So Peter, of course, the night, and just imagine the emotional state that he would have been in, right? So he's with Jesus at the Last Supper. Things are getting pretty intense. You can tell. They go up to the Mount of Olives. There's an arrest that takes place. Peter is actively defending Christ to the point of drawing a sword,
right,
and cutting a guy's ear off. Well, that should have resulted in Peter losing his life right then. But Jesus intervened and healed the guy. And so for whatever reason, I guess it was, more of the temple guard. So maybe they
right,
took it easy. But so Peter is willing to give up his life for Christ. But now Jesus is arrested, and things are progressing, and Peter just gets asked by random people, "Hey, don't you know that guy?"
Right.
And his immediate response is, "No, I don't know him." Right? He's caught up in this craziness. And then he denies Christ, and he's broken by it, because after the third time, and he's using all kinds of, I don't know if they're 4-letter words there, but they're but he's passionately denying, and then all of a sudden the change of the time, and he's reminded of what Jesus said
Yeah.
that he would do, and he's just broken. Man, that the guilt of having that, I can't imagine what he must have been feeling as then he sees Jesus die on the cross,
Right.
the
Right.
next day, and his last interaction, if you will, with Christ was him denying him.
Right. Exactly.
Man,
And what did Christ do?
he
Forgave him.
forgive.
Yeah. I mean, he
Mhm.
forgave him. And to your point, I mean, I know we've talked about this, but the thing is I think we as a people, if you put yourself in that position, I guess kind of says I know someone's exactly in this position, but the last conversation, the last whatever you have with somebody that you truly love, and it goes sideways and they die,
Mhm.
that guilt you are going to have
Yeah.
is just it's just insane. You're never going to shake. I'm going to say you never.
Right.
It's going to be nearly impossible to shake that because it's always going to be in your head.
In our humanness, that's where our focus goes.
Yeah.
Right. Is to that moment, not all the great moments before. Right. But especially whenever death is involved, that finality, that's where our focus truly goes.
Right.
And what Jesus, by this encounter with Peter, not only was this for Peter, but I think it's for us as well. Jesus knows that guilt that Peter has, but he also knows Peter's heart, right?
Exactly.
He knows that Peter just wants to follow him. But Peter's gonna step on a lot of rakes, right?
That's a good way to put it.
But he knows his heart. So what does Jesus do? He sets up a very similar scene to being gathered around a fire, where Peter was gathered around a fire when he denied him.
Yep.
And Jesus, what does he do? He asks him 3 straight times, just as Peter was asked 3 times whether he knew this guy, and every time Peter responds, "Lord, you know that I love you." And yes, Jesus did, but he's reaffirming with Peter and with us as we're reading this that, listen, he knows your heart, and he has forgiven you of whatever you have done, of the denial that you have given. He's forgiven you of that. But not only has he forgiven you, he's saying, don't hold on to that guilt any longer, because that is such a tool that Satan uses.
Absolutely.
Right. To get us to hold on to that guilt so that we get to that point where we feel unworthy. Right. Like, oh no, I've done too much. There's no way that God could use me anymore. But Jesus is saying, no, I do want to use you. You have been forgiven to live a new life. Now go start living it.
Right.
So,
and I think that's a big point that gets missed. I'm going to say it by the church a lot. And I know I've lived it. Remember even spoken to my dad not feeling worthy at times. Because I think we're impugned so much with you do this, you do that. You're denying Christ. Should be guilty. You're not doing what he said. You're sinning. You're doing this. So you get this massive load on your shoulders. And, because you're taught this and like, it all makes sense. It's like, why does Christ even care? Why I can't go out. I can't profess. And do I really have salvation?
Mm-hmm.
Because he must hate me right now because I keep sinning.
Yeah.
I keep doing these things. And I know there's got to be so many people. I'm going to talk about more in the Christian community that are silent.
Yeah.
They're silent out of guilt. They're silent out of not feeling that they're worthy because, and I've said it before that I went through this for years, even though going to church and all the things, and I always teach and stuff. But once I was outside those doors, it wasn't the same dude no more.
Yeah.
And it was one because I didn't want to look like a hypocrite, because it's been impugned and everybody looks, and this is what's taught, because people say, hold on, you just sinned, you just swore, you just did this. How can you be a Christian? Because you guys keep teaching if you do this, you can't be a follower, you can't be a Christian. And of course I believe this is what was the church was throwing on my shoulders. I'm not following the 10 Commandments perfectly. That I was like, I don't want to be the hypocrite. I'm not going to show that side of me. So I wasn't professing. Now, if I knew somebody or we got in a conversation, yeah, we could talk all day long what the Bible says, et cetera, et cetera. But my life wasn't emulating that. I wasn't going out and discipling because I felt guilty.
Yeah.
I was not worthy to be talking about Christ. And then not only that, have them go, you guys are a bunch of hypocrites. Why do I want to join your church?
Yeah.
And I know there's a lot of people that think that, even though in a way that's kind of me in a sort of way of denying Christ and not understanding what he's actually saying. It's like, stupid, that's not the point.
Yeah.
It's not the point.
That's right.
And Peter's a great example. Like, I've already forgiven this. You are going to screw up. Quit focusing on the sin, the dumb things. Focus on me.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, you need to live that life,
Mhm.
but not this weird portrayal. Well, it makes you just go,
Mhm.
I'm too,
Yeah.
I'm not worthy. I can't go talk to people.
No, and you know, we're walking a line here. There's two sides to the coin. It does matter how we live our life. Christ wants us to live our life the way that he has created us to live it, right? Which means we refrain from some activities, and so there are those things that we need to live that life. However, that if that becomes our focus, then we are going to live in a constant state of guilt because we're only focused on where we're failing, because we will fail, right? It's kind of that checkbox, that checklist of things,
Yeah.
right? I've just got to make sure I check all the boxes today. Well, if you just keep focusing on that, what's eventually going to happen is you're just going to quit being able to fill the check boxes out because
Right.
it's too hard, right? I use the example, an easy example for guys especially, right? Like the sin of pornography, which is a disgusting sin that entraps people. It is a unbelievable tool of Satan for sure, right? And so we see that. So when you get caught into that, what happens is we say, okay, I know I'm not supposed to be doing this anymore, right? So we start focusing, and we're like, okay, all right, I made it through this day. I didn't look. Then I made it through this day. Yes. All right. So now I've got to be ready. It's day three. I've got to stay on the wagon, right, or off the wagon. I get confused, but I think on the wagon is the good thing.
Yeah.
Off the wagon is the bad thing, right? Okay, so you're like, I'm going to stay on the wagon, and okay, another checkbox. And then something pops up on your phone on day 4, and you hit that link, and you're like, oh, just look, get rid of it. You know, I can't do this anymore. I think what Christ is teaching us, and what the big picture of how he wants us to handle things is, quit focusing on that.
Right.
Focus on him.
Right.
Focus on who he is, what he has done for you, and what he has called you to. He has called you now to live a new life. So focus on him, and then eventually those check boxes start taking care of themselves.
They do. They really do. And I think because this is a story of Peter also, you go back to the boat when they're on the rough seas and Christ came out.
Yes. Yeah.
And Peter believed, which is obviously another thing. He's going to step out of the boat. And Christ's like, don't be looking at the waves. Don't worry about anything. You look at and focus on me.
Yeah.
And the moment he quit doing that, he sank.
Yes.
But the whole point is, quit worrying about all this stuff over here. If you focus on me, this is not going to be a problem.
Right.
And that's a lot of deep understanding, a lot of focus. Don't get me wrong.
Yes.
But it's another point of understanding is focus on him, and those dark things, if you will, are not going to be the issue that we make them because we're looking at the waves.
Yes.
Oh, fell on that one. Oh, I'm falling this one. I can't keep my balance. I'm just going to sink.
Yeah.
Forget this. I'm getting back in the boat.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to go about my little merry life.
Yeah.
And that's the part we're missing, is now we're not out actually doing the discipling because we feel guilty. We feel pain. We feel all the things.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, and Satan, like you say, he's like, right on. You're not talking. Okay, I get it. You're a believer, but you're not talking about this guy. Beautiful. Keep thinking that. Keep feeling guilty.
Yeah.
Keep feeling you're not worthy.
Mm-hmm.
Keep feeling you're too sinful. Yeah. Keep focusing on the sin. Stay on my sidelines.
Yeah. No, that's exactly, and that because Satan's desire, right, is to either one, have us on his team, right? Which there are those who are very actively evangelizing against Christianity and against Christ. That is out there, and we see it in ways that we've never seen before just because of our technology, right? So yes, would Satan love to get you to switch teams and start actively persecuting the church, right, and going after, sure, but the second best option, and sometimes even the more effective option,
Yeah.
is okay. Yeah, you've chosen to believe in this guy, and so your salvation is in him. But that's fine. I don't care about that. But if I can keep you on the sideline, if I can keep you more focused on your doubt and your guilt and stuff like that, where you're not actually helping and following the Great Commission of what Christ has called you to do,
Not
to
in the
go,
game.
you're just sitting on the sideline in your own self-pity.
Yep.
Satan's like, that's awesome. That's great, because now people aren't hearing the wonderful things of how God is helping you overcome your guilt and overcome your doubt and overcome your unworthiness, right? If we give him the opportunity to do that, man, we get a glimpse of the glory of God that we haven't seen before, and in new personal ways, right? And then we can take that out, because, man, people are, they're hungry for what is true, right? And I don't know what you're going through as you're watching this, but everybody experiences and has doubts. Everyone feels unworthy. But Jesus's answer to us is the interaction he had with both Thomas and with Peter, is that he can overcome that. And we don't have to focus on our doubt and focus on our guilt anymore. We turn our focus to the risen Christ, and his glory will overshadow all of those other things.
That's a perfect way to put it.
Yeah. So I think we're wrapped up there. I'm praying I hit record on this one. If not, I'm going to start downing myself.
I can't drink no more coffee if we have to.
I can't handle another cup of coffee. We're going to be we're going to have to go with the decaf.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for joining us on our Day After podcast. Wednesday night, 6:30, we'll be here with Tom going through, and we're finishing up chapter 2. We're not in chapter 3 just yet, but eventually we'll get there. And, about chapter 10, Christ will return. We'll continue our Bible study up in heaven to see how things work out. But no, it's great. And you can also watch it through our app, the Journey Elgin Church app, or on Redeemed Idiot, YouTube, or Facebook. So, all right. Thanks for joining us.